What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Talking Balls video. So today I want to get into a pressing issue in the National Football League, which is the Cincinnati Bengals, and they've now fallen to 4-8 on the season, and they don't really have a direction on where to go. They are a couple years removed from being in the Super Bowl, but they haven't really been able to replicate that form from a couple years ago. So let's get into some stats first before I kind of introduce why I think the Bengals need to go and what their most pressing needs are. So, as we know, the defense is a problem. The offense has played phenomenal throughout the year. Yes, they've had some turnovers, interceptions, things like that, but the defense can't stop anybody. There's been multiple games this year where the defense needs to get a stop, crucial time in the game, allow Joe Burrow to get the ball back, Jamar Chase and a bunch of weapons, and they can't. They can't stop the run, they can't stop the pass, they don't generate pressure, so let's kind of get into that. So the Bengals allow the sixth most passing yards per game at 241. We clearly saw that this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson looked like it was, 2016, 2015 again? It was amazing to see if you're a Steelers fan and just if you enjoy watching Russell Wilson play like that. But, man, Bengals got to do better at that. They had the fourth fewest sacks in the season at only 21. Not even 2 a game. That's not going to win you games. They're middle of the league in rush defense. They allow the 6th most yards per game total, so rushing and passing combined. They do, because they have a low secondary stats, and their secondaries continue to get beat. They do have some injuries that have been a really key part in that. They lost Dax Hill and DJ Turner for the year, so Cam Taylor-Britt, Mike Hilton had to step in and really solidify that role, and they haven't done a great job. To be honest, they have been getting beat time in and time out. Saw Cam Taylor-Britt had a pick 6 last week against the Steelers, but they let Russell Wilson put 400 yards up. And you'll see it's a theme with multiple quarterbacks on the Cincinnati Bengals defense. They can't stop anybody, no matter good quarterback in his prime, Russ past his prime. So I kind of want to get into some stats of the last couple of games, and even a little bit earlier in the season. Some quarterbacks who have had a lot of success against the Cincinnati Bengals. So like I said last week, week 13, Russell Wilson had 414 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Phenomenal stats, especially if you have no fantasy. Week 12, Justin Herbert put up 297 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Week 11, Lamar put up 290, 4 touchdowns, again, 0 interceptions. And Lamar did the same thing in week 6, putting up 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. So we can see right there, what's that? 11, 14 to 1 interceptions for these 4 games where quarterbacks have went off against the Cincinnati Bengals. That's unacceptable. They're not generating turnovers. They're not generating sacks. They're middle of the pack in the rush defense. So the defense isn't doing anything right. And we've seen Joe Burrow countless times put up 35, 40 points even. Jamar Chase go for 2, 3 touchdowns in a game. And it's just not enough. We saw against the Baltimore Ravens, against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. Joe Burrow's putting up phenomenal stats, and if he was, say, 7-5, 8-5, he'd be an MVP right now. He'd probably be the leading candidate. And even though he's even kind of getting buzz being a 4-8 quarterback, it's phenomenal. It honestly sucks to see that being a couple years removed from that Super Bowl run that they couldn't put better pieces around him. You don't want to see this happen. The same thing happened with Drew Brees when he got to New Orleans and he had those dead years where they went 7-9. It felt like 3-4 years in a row. You can't waste those years as a quarterback, because eventually it's going to catch up to the quarterback, and he has a good defense like Drew Brees later in his career. He had a phenomenal defense around him, but his arm just wasn't the same. I'm not saying that's going to be the same thing with Joe Burrow, because Drew Brees had shoulder problems and stuff like that. But again, he's had a torn ACL. Just you cannot predict when injuries are going to happen, and you have to take advantage of when your quarterback and your pieces around you are just amazing. You saw Chase Brown this year, second-year player, really step up and solidify himself as that RB1 in Cincinnati. After Joe Mixon left, there was a big void. Him, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, who's going to really be that lead back, take some of that pressure off Joe Burrow. And it hasn't really been a problem. Ever since Zach Moss went on IR like 3 or 4 weeks ago with that neck injury, Chase Brown stepped in perfectly and really, I think, established himself as a core guy in Cincinnati. And T. Higgins is a free agent this offseason. There's rumors he might go to New England and lose another receiver right there. It's just you have to take advantage of these things, and the defense it sucks because they do have a couple guys on there, Trey Henderson, Hubbard, that can make plays, and there's people in the secondary who like Mike Hilton, who is 31 now, but in years past in their Super Bowl run, he was phenomenal, especially in that Kansas City Chiefs game. It's just they're getting older, and you just hate to see a team that had so much potential a couple years ago, one of the only teams that could actually really beat the Chiefs, especially in the playoffs, not be able to have success. So where do I think they should go in the draft and free agency? Cornerback, safety, linebacker. I think you need to go all in on defense. Again, Joe Burrow hasn't gotten sacked. The offensive line has been shaky at times. They did use a first-round pick last year on an offensive tackle. I think he's got to go all defense because I think Joe can make it happen. As long as Jamar Chase is there, I think they got to give him a contract this offseason. I don't see a world where they don't, especially after this year he's putting up, leading the league in receiving yards and touchdowns. How do you not? So in free agency, again, drafting, it's kind of weird. You got to wait a little bit, see how they perform at the combine and things like that to really give a nice, accurate mock draft who they should target. Obviously, I think if Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan, falls to them. Right now, the Bengals have I think it's a 9th pick. They got to go him right then and there. But I don't think he's going to fall to 9, and I don't think the Bengals are going to finish with 4 wins on the season. I think they're going to probably be in that 13 to 15 range in the draft and win a couple of these games down the stretch. But there are a couple free agents who I know are established in the league, and I think they should be have their eyes on if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. One being Javon Holland, safety from Miami. Next, DJ Reed, cornerback from the Jets, and then Traveris Ward, cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers. I would be the highest one I'd be on there would probably be DJ Reed. I think the Cincinnati Bengals really, really need a star corner. Again, they're playing in a division that has playmakers. You just got to stop the Russell Wilson been playing phenomenal. George Pickens, then him here and there, he's really good, but struggles at times. But I think you just got to have a star corner. You got Zay Flowers in there. You see what the Browns do in the offseason. I think Shador Sanders maybe go in there. They have a high enough draft pick. We'll see about that. And then just in the league, most of the teams have a star receiver. Having a corner that can travel with the star receiver is just so important. It really lets you focus on the run game, especially if you know your run defense isn't amazing. Put your star corner on island. See if he can hang with one of those guys and see where that goes. But just to kind of wrap it up, I think the Bengals really need to focus on those areas. It really sucks to see them wasting a season like this of Joe Burrow, who's leading the league in passing yards, touchdown, as well as Jamar in receiving yards and touchdowns as well. Since you don't want to see a team go 4-8, they've had countless games where they should have won probably. Both Baltimore Ravens games, I would say they should have won both of those games. This Pittsburgh Steelers game, there's no reason why the defense should give up that many points. I think the game was closer than it was. That Joe Burrow getting strip sacked, I think that really was happened just because the defense, he was trying to press so much, and the offensive line just couldn't hold up. There's been a couple of bad losses. I think they lost to the New England Patriots in Week 1 as well. It's like these games were early in the season, and at times when you just have to win, they come back to bite you in the end because if they make a run and say they win the next 4 and they're at 8-8 and they can only finish at 9-8. It's those games that you just want back, and you know that they couldn't make a run. If they get in the playoffs, not saying they are now, but before, if they couldn't make the playoffs, I think they can. No team wants to play them. The Ravens don't. The Chiefs, I definitely know, don't want to face them. The Steelers wouldn't want to face them again. The Bills, Texans, etc. I don't think any of them want to play Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase in the playoffs because they've seen it time in and time out. When it's time to make plays, those two can make it. But I think those teams obviously might want to see them too because that defense is terrible, frankly. The secondary can do on that secondary. You can do whatever you want on them, especially if you're a pass happy team like say the Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans. I think you gotta want them, but I don't think those teams have to worry about it. I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals are even a remote playoff threat. I think the percentage was at 1.3 when I saw it today. They're not really a threat, but I think they really need to focus on these areas in the offseason in order to surround a team with around Joe Burrow to give him a chance to win these next couple of years. His prime isn't guaranteed for 5 to 8 more years, and you gotta capitalize now. They have areas where they need help, but they have areas where they're phenomenal. I think you have to really take advantage of that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. You guys have a blessed day. Peace.